Low-key geek. Hey, he's a low-key geek. He tries to be out there when he wants to be, but hey, he's a low-key geek.
What's going on, guys? It is I, Renee LOWKEY GEEK, back here with another podcast episode. A little later than normal. I tend to try to aim to upload these episodes on Monday, but had some scheduling conflicts yesterday, so wasn't able to get it up yesterday. So I am recording and uploading this on a Tuesday, April 6th. So I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, and I hope your weeks have been off to a fantastic start so far. As for myself, I am gearing up because after I record and upload this, I am heading out. It's going to be my first trip outside of my home and outside of my neighborhood, really, for a long period of time since the whole pandemic started. So I'm taking a little trip to the woods. I got myself a little house and gonna just spend a couple of days just relaxing and clearing my head. It's always good to change your scenery. And with the type of year that we've had, it's very important to do so if you have the chance to. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So, but with that, I'll the way here, guys, if you are new to this channel or new to the podcast here, every week I like to review some of the top stories, give some to give my takes on things that have dropped, give a little reviews on certain things. Like for example, today, I will be talking about the bunch of trailers that dropped over the weekend and yesterday. Give my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong, which I watched on Friday of last week, and the episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier and Invincible that dropped also on Friday. So just so you guys know what's going on there. And as usual, the YouTube spiel here. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Again, my goal is to try to get the channel up to 500 subs by the end of the month, if possible. And any help that you guys can send your way would be greatly appreciated. So you may notice something on the bottom of the screen here. It's something that has caught my attention, and I've been really fascinated ever since it happened. So if you guys aren't aware, in Iceland back on March 20, they had a volcano that erupted. Basically, this volcano has been dormant for, I believe, 800 years. And Iceland has been experiencing a lot of earthquakes for the last couple of weeks. And finally, this thing opened up. And boy, what a sight it was. And I am always fascinated when Mother Nature decides to do something, because it's natural phenomenon, and there's a lot of it that we don't really get to see these days. And for example, this volcano. So it's funny that it erupted on March 20th, and this is day 8, and it is still going strong. I mean, look at this thing. Look at all that lava spurting out. So something big also happened yesterday, where a new fissure opened up as well. So you have a bunch of hikers and all that who are in Iceland going up and watching these things live. There's a video on YouTube that you can see where someone had a drone and kind of flew the drone through the whole path of the lava up until to this point. Right now, the new fissure that opened up yesterday seems to have kind of like calmed down. So there's another camera live feed, and you don't really see much of anything. So this is the original one, and you can see it's still going really strong here. go on YouTube. There are a bunch of live feeds or channels that have live feeds of this video footage, and I think it is fascinating. The best time to see this is at night because the nighttime views are amazing. And again, this is Mother Nature. This is real stuff and natural phenomenon. So I'm always fascinated with that kind of stuff there. So I have the little window down below. So if you want to take a look at it while the video is playing, apologize to you audio listeners if you're not able to see, but check out the videos on YouTube. Definitely worth checking out if you're into that stuff. Also, since I mentioned the audio listeners, if you do want to listen to the podcast in audio form, you could find the Low-Key Geek channel there on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere podcasts can be found and heard. And if you do so, leave a great rating, follow. It'll be greatly appreciated there. So yeah, Volcano Watch Day 8. Love it. So let's go into some of these trailers that dropped recently. Yesterday and over the weekend, Marvel has been really pushing out a lot of marketing fronts. And it looks like they're really trying to remind us that they have two big things coming up in the next couple of months. Once Falcon and the Winter Soldier is done, the Black Widow movie is still sticking firm on their theatrical release there in May. And then after that, you have the Loki series coming out on Disney Plus. So we got a new Black Widow trailer that came out over the weekend. Kind of surprising. I don't think a lot of people were expecting to see a new trailer for Black Widow there, but I liked it. Again, it doesn't give a lot about the storyline, but it gives you the importance of the character, kind of her history throughout the MCU, and which leads her up until this point. And it definitely rings in about her backstory and the things that she's gone through, kind of her legacy in the MCU. So really, really cool stuff there. You got to see more footage of Taskmaster, which I thought was really, really interesting. I am so curious as to how they're going to portray Taskmaster and how big of a baddie he's going to be, because Taskmaster in the comics is phenomenal. For those of you who may not be aware, Taskmaster is a character that has the ability to mimic other people's special powers. So just by looking at them doing it once, he can automatically mimic it. And it is a phenomenal power that he has there. So I could only imagine the fight scenes between him and Black Widow, seeing him mimic her fighting styles and all that. It's going to be really, really fun to see. You got to see more of Florence Pugh and the other characters there. So again, doesn't really give a lot away, but it definitely paints more of a picture as to what the purpose of this movie is. And I think it's kind of interesting now that, with all their shifts and changes, again, we were supposed to get Black Widow last year. We were supposed to get Black Widow before WandaVision, so now that we're going through the story of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm pretty sure somehow there's going to be a tie to Black Widow. And if not Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there's a possible tie to Loki. And the reason why I say that is because moving on to the Loki trailer that dropped yesterday, we got to understand a little bit more of what this series is going to be about. It looks like it's a time heist or time travel type of series where Loki's going to be working really closely with the Owen Wilson character there. He messed up the timeline, and there's apparently this agency that monitors the timeline, and anything that kind of messes around with that, they act on it. So it's kind of like a policing agency. So they bring in Loki because of what he's done, and they're tasking him to fix it, correct all the broken timelines or all the like little mistakes that's happened. If you remember in Avengers Infinity War, where you had the Tilda Swinton character, and she was explaining to Hulk about the whole timeline and how if something breaks here, this could affect and all that. So they kind of bring that back in a way where you could see, like, because of what Loki did, and they're calling him not the real Loki. I forgot what they refer to him in the trailer. But because he kind of broke that timeline by taking the Tesseract and zapping out of that specific timeline that he was in, it set a lot of other things in motion. So they're tasking him to fix all that. Now, the reason why I bring up Black Widow is because if you look at that trailer, there is a scene, you get a glimpse of Loki sitting down on this planet talking to a female, or it looks like a female, an individual that looks eerily similar to Black Widow. She has like the bob haircut that she used to rock back in the early days of the MCU. And they're sitting, you don't see her face, but you just see the back of her head and you see her hair, and the outfit that she wears looks very Black Widow like. So I'm wondering if Loki kind of, runs into her in this timeline travel that he's doing. Who knows what that interaction is. If, again, I'm speculating here, if this is truly Black Widow, but it looks like her, right? And it will be really interesting to see if that's the case, what their interaction is going to be like and what it's going to mean to the timeline moving forward. Because, we all know Loki's dead. Black Widow's dead. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the movies already, you should have known all that by now. But this is a way to kind of bring them back into the universe, because again, like the comic books, no one really truly dies, right? Unfortunately. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out, but the series itself is looking really, really interesting. I like the whole policing department or agency that kind of like monitors the timeline and the multi-dimensions there, and now Loki has to do what he has to do to fix it for them, kind of like a penance for his crimes. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm actually really looking forward to this series. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm curious. Let me know in the comments section there what you think of, Black Widow, Loki, especially with the new trailer that dropped. I said it before that with Black Widow, it's been pushed so many times and it's been delayed. It's getting to the point now where I'm wondering, are people really going to care about the Black Widow movie? And I think this trailer kind of helps, with that. It kind of helps, bring that interest back. Black Widow was a very cool character in the MCU. I know there may be some mixed feelings about her character as a whole, but I really dug her character, and she played a lot of important roles, and she found herself in multiple movies. She was a big presence in Captain America. She was a big presence in Iron Man. Obviously the Avengers there. So really, really curious to see how that's all going to play. And again, I think mainly it's going to be like, how are they going to view and portray Taskmaster there, and what is going to be the end result with Florence Pugh's character, because if you've been following the news, you know that there are rumors that she may take on the mantle of the new Black Widow. If they are going forward with forming this Young Avengers team, I feel like we've been getting hints a lot of possible Young Avengers team members. WandaVision, you saw the two kids there, and all that. Now with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with Isaiah, who in the comics was the Black Captain America, he appears in this series, and his nephew in the comics was part of the Young Avengers, I believe, at one point. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Again, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. So let me know in the comment section. So the other big trailer that dropped over the weekend, and last week, it preceded by Warner Brothers releasing a bunch of character posters for the new Space Jam movie, right? Starring LeBron James there. LeBron James. So finally, on Saturday, they released the first trailer, the first look of the new Space Jam movie. Now, I'm going to be completely honest here, and I'm sure it's going to surprise a lot of you. I have never watched the original Space Jam movie. I know. I'm sure a lot of you are gasping or surprised or wondering what the hell's wrong with me. But for some bizarre reason during that time, it I somehow missed it. I was not really interested in it. I do love movies, and I have always loved movies. And around that time, my interest in movies was very heightened because I was going through a lot of movie watching during that time. But for some reason, this one kind of flew under the radar for me. I have a lot of friends who've watched Space Jam and love it. So I am curious. I am going to watch it because I believe if it's not there now, it will be coming to HBO Max soon because Space Jam 2 is going to be streaming on HBO Max and in theaters as they do their day and date release there. So I will be watching it, and I'll be sure to let you guys know my thoughts of watching Space Jam all these years later and at an older age. So I'm wondering like how I'm going to take to it. But the trailer dropped and it was buzzing all over the internet, mainly because of all the different cameos that are appearing in this movie. When I watched it for the first time on Saturday, the first thing that came to mind was like, this is like another Ready Player One. And it's funny how a lot of people were saying the same thing there too. But basically the premise is, you have LeBron, having, some issues with his kid and his son. I guess he's pushing his son to be a basketball player, but the kid doesn't want to be. He has his own dreams and aspirations. Somehow LeBron kind of gets sucked into the serververse. He meets Don Cheadle, who is kind of like the king or whatever you want to call him. Sentences LeBron to the Toon universe, and he himself gets animated like a Looney Tunes character. And I thought that part alone was the best part for me. I loved seeing that animation style of LeBron in Looney Tunes form, and the animation itself is so clean and really, really great looking. It's so amazing how nice it looks. And then they kick it into like how they're gonna form like this, you know, basketball team, and how they're gonna have to go against now the new Monster Squad or the Goon Squad, or whatever they call it. And in order to do so, they're gonna have to call some help, and it looks like they're calling up a bunch of the Warner Brothers characters there. You see so many different characters pop up in this trailer like really quickly. Interesting enough, today, right before I started recording this, Warner Brothers, they launched a new companion video to their trailer that kind of points out all the different Easter eggs in the trailer. So they kind of help the audience because there were a lot of people who were already going through the trailer like frame by frame. I don't have the time to do that. I leave it up to those guys to do it so that I could read it later. But it's nice that that Warner Brothers is kind of placating to that audience and saying, "Hey guys, let us help you out so that we can point out some of the things for you." So you see like the Iron Giant, you see King Kong, you see pretty much what looks like the whole Hanna-Barbera character universe there. You know the Flintstones, you got Scooby-Doo and all that stuff like that. You got Game of Thrones being thrown in the mix there. So you have a lot of different of Warner Brothers properties there, who are going to be making little cameos, even if it's just in the background, right? Now, the biggest controversy that came out, and who would have thought that there would be controversy that is surrounding the Space Jam movie, but it pretty much started several weeks ago. And this is where I have a bone to pick with the internet, and with a lot of people, but I don't know if I'm going to do it in this episode. I might just make a separate video about this. But some dude wrote in an article about Pepe Le Pew and how that character kind of promoted rape culture and all that stuff like that. And then that, drew a lot of attention on the internet, and how now Pepe Le Pew, who hasn't been on screen or in any kind of media format since I believe 2015 when he appeared on that new Looney Tunes show that they did on Cartoon Network or something. I believe that they were turning him into like a swab James Bond character. So they've already been trying to change his original character and to make him fit. But anyway, like I said, I won't go too much into this. I'll save it for a separate video. But everyone wanted to cancel Pepe Le Pew. And then it was announced that his character or this character was being cut from Space Jam 2. Now, I don't know who to believe here, if he was even a part of Space Jam 2 or not, or if Warner Brothers was just saying that to kind of, calm things down or what have you. It's hard to say. I really don't know, but he's not in the movie. But yet a character like Speedy Gonzalez is. And if you know your history and you know anything about the Warner Brothers cast of characters, he himself was inspired in a lot of controversy back in the day too. But I digress. And then people were bitching about, Lola Bunnies and how her breasts are so much smaller than the original Space Jam. I mean, people are, you guys, the internet cracks me up. It really does. But the biggest controversy that dropped from the trailer over the weekend is that if you look in the background, especially during the scenes where I believe now you had LeBron in the real life form with the Looney Tunes characters there on the basketball court, and you have a bunch of people watching the game. In the background, you do have the Droogs. The Droogs or Droogs, I forgot what how you pronounce it, but basically the cast of characters that you found in the movie A Clockwork Orange, the Stanley Kubrick classic movie there. Now, I'm a huge fan of that movie, but that movie itself talks about very controversial topics. One of which is that these guys would go around and basically cause chaos and havoc because they're going against the regime, they're going against the norm, and some of the things that they've done is they've raped women. So you have these characters doing a cameo in your Space Jam movie, who in their original movie ran around pillaging, supporting violence, and raping women. Something's off, maybe? I don't know. But again, this is why I said I have a bone to pick, because this whole cancel culture is so uneven. It's just, and look, I'm a huge supporter of, making sure that things are correct these days. I know we grew up with a lot of stuff back in the 80s that is deemed very inappropriate now, and I totally get it. It was a different time back then, though. You watch a movie like Revenge of the Nerds now, and a lot of the stuff that happens in that movie cannot fly these days, but yet back in the day we thought it was funny, and all that kind of stuff like that. So I get it, and I have no problem with that stuff. But let the past be the past. It is what it is. We change as a society, at least that's always the hope, and to make things better for us and for everyone else. And because of that, times change. And I totally get that, and I support that 100%. But there's no reason to bring things up from the past, because you can't change that. Now, if they were to redo and do all that same exact stuff today, then I totally understand that that is very inappropriate and you can't do that, right? You guys know my channel by now, hopefully. I did a video that reviewed this cartoon John Dillerman, which is a guy with, kind of a sentient penis who just goes around and does crazy stuff. It's, in my opinion, harmless. But you have a lot of people out there who believe that this type of cartoon, which is a Danish cartoon, it's in Denmark, supports pedophilia, which could be a stretch, but I get where they're coming from. But at the same time, I think, this is where people just get a little bit too nitpicky on stuff. And it just reassures to me over and over again that George Carlin is correct, that the pacification of America, the pacification of the world is strong, and it has been going on for a while now, right? And I feel like we are very sensitive to so many different things now. And but I'll leave that rant again for another time. But that was the biggest controversy that happened over the weekend there with this trailer. But that being said, I am actually very curious about this movie, and I didn't think I would be. I am not a huge LeBron James fan. Haven't been since the whole decision. I thought he mishandled that well, and I just, I don't know. I think after that, and I know he's done a lot of great stuff in his career, and I know he supports a lot of great communities and all that stuff like that. But I there's just something in me that I really don't like him that much, and that's just my opinion. However, he does look like a great fit in this movie. It looks like he can act. I mean, if you watch basketball, we all know he acts very well when he's trying to, draw fouls and cry about calls and all that stuff like that. But and people said like that movie he did with Amy Schumer, I'm forgetting the name of it, like he was actually really good in that movie. I didn't see it, so it looks like he's a good fit here. I'm just curious to see like how they're going to portray the Looney Tunes characters and all the different cameos and all that. Will there be any surprises in there? I'm pretty sure there will be. I remember, even though I never saw the original movie, there were a lot of surprises. Like you had Bill Murray that popped up and everything. So it'll be really, really cool to see how this movie, kind of gets brought, how it's going to portray a lot of this stuff. And is it going to be entertaining, right? But I guess we'll get to see soon enough there. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Space Jam 2 trailer. I'm sure I might draw some comments about the things that I said. Please, by all means, let's have a conversation about it. I'm sure once I drop my separate video eventually about my thoughts on all of this separately, there will be some discussions had, but which I totally welcome 100%, but let's be civil about it. One of the things that kind of bothered me about the John Dillermand episode review that I did is that a lot of comments, people were being very, very harsh and very abrasive and all that, using curse language and every that, calling people stupid. That's not necessary. We don't need that here. Let's just be civil. Let's have a discussion about it. All right. Everyone has the right for their own opinion. But that doesn't mean you have to be like so abusive about it. I've always been open to listening to other people's opinions and thoughts, and I have always great conversations with everybody about certain controversial topics. At the end of the day, we may still disagree, but at least we had a discussion, and there's nothing wrong with that. It can be done. Yeah, we can be civil. So let me know in the comments and all that, and I'll take a sip of my coffee in my lovely Chewbacca mug here. So, all right. So, moving on. This is definitely going to be a shorter episode because there was not a huge amount of news that dropped over last week there, but a new game finally got released, Outriders, the new Square Enix game that came out, which is kind of like their answer to the whole loot shooter genre. And I was reading some articles recently, and it looks like there's a lot of mixed feelings about this game. A lot of people don't like it, and then there are a lot of people who do. I used to play Destiny for a very, very long time. And if you think of the term loot shooter, I'm pretty sure Destiny ranks like in the top 3, if not 1, in recent years. And I got tired of it after a while, and I officially retired from that game early last year. So I was hesitant to look at this game when it came out, but then I checked out the demo and I played the demo quite a lot. And honestly, I'm enjoying this game because, yes, I can see the aspects of it being a loot shooter, but I also like the fact that there is a real thorough, straight through storyline. And it's not one of those things where It's such a huge open world. It's very controlled, at least from what I've seen so far. So it doesn't really force you to have to do so many random tasks. The options are there to do so, but it looks like it's not, at least for now, forcing you to do all that other stuff. It really is focusing on the story content and the story playthrough. You have co-op, but honestly, this is a game that you could really enjoy playing with your friends, but also playing solo. I felt like Destiny eventually became a game where it was necessary to play with other people, especially as things got really harder and difficult. And then when you would go back to playing solo on Destiny, it became very boring, at least in my opinion. I felt like lonely because again, like I was so used to playing with other people that I lost interest even faster that way. So from what I've experienced in this game so far, and I had a chance to play with one of my friends last week. I really enjoy it, and it has so many different aspects in the game itself. It reminds me of Destiny, but the gameplay itself reminds me a lot of Gears of War. There's a lot of kind of RPG elements in it that kind of remnants reminds you a little bit of like Diablo and all that kind of stuff like that. My friend was breaking it down really well about all the different ties and things that reminded him of other games. It sometimes at times I feel like it looks like Mass Effect, which another friend of mine called out as well. So I've been enjoying it so far. Now, granted, I'm only like maybe 2 hours in or 3 hours in. Who knows what my opinion will be once I get more into it, but I'm digging it so far. So I don't know if you guys are playing it, if you are checking it out, or if you're planning to. I'm curious to hear what you guys think of the game. Or if you're not interested in the game, why is that? Like, I'm very, very curious to hear what other people think about it. I think it was a little easier for me to also get into it because it was a free, well, not free because I am paying for the service, but it was included on the Game Pass there, the Microsoft Game Pass, which was huge, a huge deal. Um, once I found out that that was going to be the case, I didn't have to worry about pre-ordering, and it made it even a bigger incentive for me to really want to play it because, right now I'm not, I don't have free flowing funds at the moment, I would say. So I'm very picky when it comes to the games that I play, the movies that I watch, what have you. So that was a huge deal for me, and it made I will admit it made it a lot more attractive to me. So but along the same lines of that, Microsoft dropped a huge bit of news last week that MLB The Show, which for the first time is not going to be a PlayStation exclusive, you are going to be able to play this on Xbox as well. They dropped huge news that it was going to be also available day one on Game Pass. And that is huge. Guys, I don't know if you are aware of how big of news this is, but in the gaming industry and the gaming community, this is a big deal. Already it was kind of odd and weird to hear that it will be available on Xbox because it's been such an exclusive on PlayStation for so long. And it's the only baseball title out there that uses the team names, the real players, and all that stuff like that. So if you wanted to play a baseball game, you had to basically go to get yourself a PlayStation if you didn't have one and get the show. I know there's RBI too, but I don't know how well that's done. I've always been told that it's not even worth it, that the show is the one that really is the top dog there when it comes to baseball games. So when they announced that it was going to be no longer exclusive and that you were going to be able to play it on Xbox, there's a lot of sports gamers out there who prefer Xbox when it comes to sports games, when it comes to your Maddens, when it comes to your 2Ks and all that stuff like that. Now they're finally getting a chance to play baseball. on an Xbox. So that's already huge. Then to drop the bomb that it's going to be available on Game Pass day one of release, big news. And I think, honestly, Microsoft at this point in time, when it comes to, and especially when it comes to like next gen stuff, and a lot of people may not see it this way, but I think they are beating Sony at this game right now because Sony right now, I would say, has probably the more attractive looking next gen games. You have your Miles Morales, you have your Demon Souls, the new one Returnal is coming out soon, which looks fantastic. But when you talk about next gen games, those are like the main ones there. Like Xbox right now doesn't really have anything that is standing out. So when it comes to that, they are pretty much leading the pack. But when it comes to accessibility to games to play, next gen or not, you can't beat Game Pass. And, and I'm not biased because I own both systems. And whatever system I feel like I want to play the game on, I will support. A lot of my friends own PlayStation only. So when it comes to multiplayer games, I'm always playing on PlayStation. When it comes to single player games, I do tend to just stick to Xbox because that's the way I kind of, even things out, and I kind of give enough love to both. But these days, I'll tell you, I've been giving a lot more love to my Xbox because of Game Pass. There's a lot of games that drop on Game Pass that I've always wanted to try out, and it just so happens to be available. And then now with Outriders coming out on Game Pass, I'll be playing that for a bit. And then even though I am not a huge sports gamer, I will be definitely checking out MLB The Show because, when I've had moments where I played it on PlayStation, I did enjoy it from, time to time. It's a good little like time waster and all that. But now that I have it on Game Pass, I don't have to shell out any additional money for it. I mean, you can't beat that, really. And those are two huge AAA titles that is made available on Game Pass. And Microsoft was saying even last year that this was going to be their big focus moving into this year and the future. So I don't know. Is it just me? Am I the only one who sees it this way? But I do think that Microsoft is leading the pack when it comes to just overall options and overall, accessibility to stuff and kind of friendlier to the budget, I would say. And for someone like myself, that's a huge deal. Now, for someone else who is not in my shoes, could think of it much differently. And I know there are a lot of people like you, like some of you out there, who are huge Sony fans. You will support Sony to the day you die. So when announcements like the PSN store shutting down for PS3 and PSP stuff, I know a lot of you are upset about that. I get it. When the Vita was not being supported, I know there's a lot of you out there who are very disappointed about that and very angry. So like when a lot of that stuff happens, the hardcore fans make their voices heard 100%. So I know no matter what happens, you guys will be supporting Sony PlayStation and Sony for the long haul. And again, I don't have anything against that. Like I said, I own both systems because I'm a fan of the Miles Morales game. There's a lot of titles that will be coming to PlayStation 5 that I'm really looking forward to. And Xbox was kind of lacking in the whole title release schedule, especially with Halo getting pushed back big time. And I'm not even a huge Halo player anymore. So there was really no reason to get a Series X, but they are releasing a lot of next gen upgrades to a lot of titles, so I figured I'm eventually going to get one, right? And I'm so happy that I did now because again, with all the stuff that is releasing on Game Pass, and this is just the beginning. This is something that's going to be continuing moving forward. And now with Bethesda under the Microsoft wing, who sky's the limit with anything that Bethesda releases. Pretty sure it's going to be available in Game Pass, but we'll see. Time will tell. But again, I think it's major news and I'm excited for it. At the end of the day, us gamers, we win. We win. Whether you support Xbox or not, because you could also get Game Pass for PC if you're a PC player, PC gamer. And it's one of the times now where PC gamers are getting full support and full love of games they've been wanting to play, but they don't want to buy a console or what have you. Now you get to experience a lot of Xbox games on the PC. So it's really, really interesting to see the shift in focus of Microsoft's and their game plan moving forward when it comes to gaming. And how their main focus is really that cloud service aspect to it. So really, really cool stuff there. All right, let's get into some of the reviews here. So let's talk about Godzilla versus King Kong. So it's kind of funny. I was reading the news yesterday, and this movie is a huge hit. Huge hit. It was released day and date, so meaning you could stream it on HBO Max for the next 30 days without any additional cost, or it is available. It was released in theaters if you live in an area where theaters are open. Drive-ins included and all that stuff like that. So for the weekend, it was reported that it drew in $48.5 million domestically. That's US and Canada, which is, in this pandemic era, the biggest box office weekend to date. But the interesting part here is that it already beats the previous movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters. And that came out pre-pandemic, when there was no pandemic situation happening, because that movie opened up to 47.8 million. So already a big win for this movie. And HBO Max is reporting that huge subscribers and streaming and all that stuff like that, huge success and what have you. And for the most part, a lot of people have been loving this movie, myself included, I will say. The movie itself was very entertaining. I really wish I saw this movie in the theaters. Here in New York, theaters are open with limited capacity, but I am not at that point yet where I feel comfortable in going to a movie theater just yet. Plus, I'm not vaccinated yet. But I really would have loved to have seen this movie in the theaters, because the fight scenes between Kong and Godzilla alone were phenomenal. A lot of fun. Exactly what you are expecting when it comes to the big battles. And there are three major fight scenes in this movie. Storyline and the human interactions, I mean, you're not expecting a full deep story here. Nothing will ever beat, I think, in my opinion, the balance of human and animal, monsters, whatever you want to call it. That good dynamic where there is great storylines that can be shared between the two, and it make sense. Nothing ever beats the first Jurassic Park. I feel like that movie did that kind of dynamic the best, and we haven't really seen anything to that equal, right? But a lot of the human moments were pretty much just throwaways, in my opinion. I mean, a lot of the acting was way over the top. Like the bad dudes, their acting was so over the top. It was really, really ridiculous. You have now, if you follow the lore of this Godzilla Kong universe, the new universe that they've created here, Ken Watanabe is no longer in this movie, but his son is, which is really, really interesting there. 11, from Stranger Things, Millie Bobby Brown, she didn't have to be in this movie. I felt like she was kind of like a throwaway character. Just because she was in the last one, I guess they decided to carry her over. But even her character was so different from the previous movie. Um, Previous movie, her character was another throwaway, but she did what she does best, and that's scream and cry and all that stuff like that. Now she's trying to be like an investigator and kind of like she gets a small group of like Scooby-Doo gang, kind of a Scooby-Doo gang group to kind of investigate things. You got the boy from Deadpool 2 that shows up in this movie, which is her friend, and they team up with this other guy that apparently runs a podcast with conspiracy theories about monsters and Godzilla and everything, and they do their whole investigative thing. You have moments where they're going off into these weird places, and it's just so fascinating how they are trying to really tie a lot of this stuff to a lore in the universe, and how Kong comes from a line that predates man and prehistoric time, and is part of old Earth, so they are the king of like the world there, and Godzilla is like the bad guy, right? Like he comes across as really the bad guy here. So they need Kong to kind of like create that balance, and that's a running theme throughout all these movies, is the balance of the world. Because if you have too much of this, then everything's going to go to crap, so you have to have one fight the other thing to get rid of them or what have you. They travel to the center of the and again, before I continue, spoiler alerts. I always do my reviews with spoilers. Again, if you're returning to these videos, that's the way I do reviews. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, then I would probably stop right here. I didn't give too much away yet. So I think I saved you guys. So, but moving forward between this, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Invincible, if you want to avoid spoilers, bookmark this video, come back to it later. And then I will continue. They go into the center of the earth, where apparently there is this hidden world there that defies gravity, and is the original, you could see the original home of the Kongs there. So they bring him there, and then you have him claiming the throne. I like the way they kind of like did Kong here, because he looked a little aged. He has like a beard going on, and he looks very grizzled. The movie starts off really weird because they trapped him somehow, and I think the way it was explained is because they wanted Godzilla not to know that he's around, because if Godzilla knows, again, Godzilla, restore balance, get rid of Kong, right? But it turns out that it's really Kong that should be leading the pack here, so to speak, and all that stuff like that. It's so bizarre storytelling and world building. It's very reminiscent to like the latest iterations of Transformers, which kind of just like what. But yeah, but it's, if you can just not even like put so much focus in a lot of that stuff, and just take it for what it is, it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's just mindless entertainment, action. And you watch these movies for one thing: you want to watch these kaijus, these big monsters battle it out, and you get that. You really, really get that. Again, if you watch the last movie, post-credit scene, they hinted at something which did come into fruition here. We got Mecha Godzilla, y'all, and that was an awesome reveal when that came about. And then how Ken Watanabe's character, his son, was the one helming the control of Mechagodzilla, and then the AI took over, and it had a mind of its own, and it started doing its own thing. And then you had the three-way battle going on there, which was really awesome. Just as I thought before this movie launched, you had the eventual team up. Godzilla and Kong had to eventually team up, right? And to take this Mecha Godzilla down. So huge battles all over the place. they're destroying everything left and right. So really, really fun and interesting to watch there. And I know, before this movie came out, there was always talk about there is going to be a clear winner to this movie. I mean, depending on how you look at it, it really depends who you think won between Godzilla and Kong. I personally think Kong was the better. Even though Godzilla is more powerful, Kong is very agile. So really, really interesting to see how that all plays out there. Look, if you're a fan of these movies, there's 4 of them now. What I did, I actually during the week rewatched all of them. And I will more than likely do a separate video that kind of gives like quick snippets of each movie leading up into to this movie here. If you're a fan of those movies, then you are gonna love this one for sure, 100%. And I do feel like the movies have gotten better with the newer iterations, and I do feel like this is probably top 2 in this kind of universe. I still really, really do like the first Godzilla movie because they were trying something a little different there, and I liked how they kind of built up that story within that movie. But this is definitely up there as because it gives you what you are expecting. You want to watch these 2 behemoths, these 2 titans battle it out, duke it out. The lore separated, okay, interesting. You get kind of an idea as to the motivations of these creatures, where they come from, why they're natural enemies and predators or what have you, restoring balance to the world, all that kind of stuff like that. The human interactions are throwaways. Again, it's so over the top a lot of times, and there are some moments where I was just like, why is this person even here? Why are we spending so much time with these people there? Really, really funny stuff. But again, fun, entertaining. I dug it. And if I were to give it a rating, I mean, for entertainment factor alone, I will definitely give it a 4 out of 5. But if I were to rate it as a movie, it's a solid 3 for me. So I'm sure a lot of you watched the movie and maybe a lot of you enjoyed it for the same reasons I did. If I missed anything or if you have any thoughts and opinions, some things you wanted to share, again, that's why the comment section is there. And I would love to see you guys chime in on this because, again, a lot of fun stuff there. And if I had more time, and this is another reason why I want to do a separate video, is because there are so many moments in this movie that were just like, what? And I'll say one right now. When they're in the center of the earth and Kong is like sitting on his throne, he does like a Conan the Barbarian thing where he's just there as he gets this magic axe of his and he's doing his throne sitting. All of a sudden, Godzilla just decides to breathe his radioactive breath on the ground and it digs through the earth and it blasts a hole into the center of the earth and they're like screaming at each other like, I see you too, how dare you, like that. And it's just so comical. I could feel like you can create an internal monologue of like what they're saying to each other and how they're reacting to each other. And I think a lot of other people on the internet kind of like caught this too, but there's a moment where Godzilla chuckles at a point. I don't know. It is entertaining for all the right reasons. It's silly as fuck, but it is fun to watch. So I do feel like just like how the original Godzilla movies from Japan, especially when you go back to the Showa era, a lot of those movies are silly, and all that. And, again, that's the time. And then when you moved into the Heisei era, it was starting to get a little bit more serious, but this is definitely our take on it. Our take of like the Showa mixed in with Heisei a little bit. And I think for what it's worth, I think they did a pretty decent job at it. So again, curious to hear what you guys think about it. So moving on. So yes, like I said, the latest episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, episode 3, came out on Friday. And this was an interesting episode because it was a lot of it was more story building. Now we're 3 episodes in, and we're already at, I believe, the halfway point because there's 3 more episodes to go. I do feel like we're in that act 2. Now, if you remember, or if you are familiar, whenever you watch a movie, there are 3 acts to a movie, right? First act is kind of introductions and all that stuff like that, kind of sets you up. Act 2 is usually more about the story, plot, and gearing up, expanding on why are you watching this movie in the first place and how things unfold. Act 3 is kind of the conclusion, the results, the end solution, finale, all that kind of stuff like that. And this definitely feels like we are starting, or we are already now in the middle of Act 2, because I felt like it was like a lot of story building. We finally get the confrontation between Bucky and Sam with Zemo. Zemo, they help break him out of prison because they need his help to kind of track where this the super soldier solution is coming from, who's producing it, and he seems to have all the answers and all that stuff like that. And he takes them, with him to Madripoor, which I'll touch base on in a little bit, to track down some information. And there they finally get to bump into Sharon Carter, who's been on the run since the last time we saw her in the Captain America movies, because they broke the law and all that. So she's been living a freelancing life on her own, and she's doing really well for herself. I mean, she's dealing with like art, like high-end art, all original art, and selling them off, and managing all that stuff like that. So she kind of helps the crew there locate this scientist who is producing the super soldier serum there, and all that. It ties a little bit to episode 2 because he mentions that he was utilizing blood from a test subject. We all know that that's more than likely Isaiah, because Isaiah mentioned that he was, put through a lot of tests and all that stuff like that. So, and then Zemo kills him, and, all this kind of stuff like that. Then we get to see a little bit more from the Flag Smashers, and we're getting to understand a little bit more of their motivation. We see them in Latvia, and again, touch base on that in a little bit. And you kind of get that sense that what they are doing is for a greater good, but we just don't know yet, right? It's kind of hard to see who the real villain is here. We had a cool moment where we saw Zemo put on the mask, the hood there, and I thought that looked kick-ass. However, Zemo is coming across as another kind of fun, goofy type of character. One of the most talked about scenes from this episode is when they're at a club in Madripoor, and my God, his dance moves, memes galore, all over the place. And he has like some of these one-liners throughout the episode. And Bucky and Sam have more of their kind of buddy cop 48 hours kind of back and forth, which I did feel for the very first time was a little out of place in this episode. It felt like it was a little forced, so I didn't find it as funny. They finally leave Sharon, so Sharon is still part of the universe there, and it looks like we're gonna get more of her too, which I think is pretty cool because I do like that character, and the actress, it does portray her very well. So really interesting to see there. But then the huge reveal at the end of this episode was Sam, Bucky, and Zemo are still together, and then Bucky gets caught, sees an Okoye bead from Wakanda, and he follows the breadcrumbs bead after bead after bead, and comes across one of the soldiers there, And basically, she's there because she's hunting down Zemo. Because if you recall, it was Zemo who blew up the UN, which led to the death of the king and started the journey of the Black Panther, the Chadwick Boseman Black Panther, to take over the reign there. So it looks like during this whole time they've been monitoring him, and now that he's out free in the open, they're coming for him, and now it's setting up this conflict, right, where Bucky was rescued by the folks there at Wakanda. They kind of helped rehabilitate him. They gave him a new arm. He has that nickname, White Wolf, I believe it is, or White Tiger, or it's White something. And he owes them for that, because otherwise he'd be suffering from all of the effects of the Winter Soldier program, right? So now they're coming for Zemo. He needs Zemo because they need him to kind of understand what's happening with the serum, and understand what the motivations of the Flag Smashers are. And they need him until they kind of resolute and all that. Plus, not to mention, you still have John Walker, who is doing the same thing and trying to track Zemo down, because he figured that that's where Bucky and Sam were going to go, and they beat him to the punch. So he's getting really frustrated, and we're getting to see that. I think his patience is running thin, and this could only lead to something bad. So more than likely, they're going to need his help, not John Walker, Zemo's help, to kind of combat Walker eventually, or something. And then now there's that conflict now with the folks at Wakanda now looking to interfere because they want Zemo's blood. So really, really interesting episode. Again, I do feel like it was more of like the building blocks of the overarching main plot and what will lead into the last episodes of this series. But hey, I'll be honest, I'm still digging it. I'm still digging this series a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's entertaining. It's very, very different from WandaVision. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're not seeing so many people talk about it online. Not like WandaVision, because WandaVision was a lot of mystery. Right? Why is this happening? Why is she doing this? Why is there so many oddities happening, and who's responsible, and all that kind of stuff like that? So it created that amazing cooler talk for sure, where a lot of people were just like speculating left and right. Here, just a little bit less than that, because they are kind of building things up. And it's pretty, for the most part, straightforward, right? Of course, you're curious as to what's really happening behind the scenes. What are Zemo's main motivations? I love that he mentioned that he had a private jet, and you're like, you're rich. And he's like, well, I'm a baron, dummy, Baron Zemo. Love that. So it is really, really interesting. But the main interesting parts of this episode are the things that they were introducing, not secretly, but more kind of behind the scenes, where if you're not paying attention, or if you don't really know much about the lore in comics, you would easily miss it. But I love these two things that they kind of brought forward into the episode, into the universe of the MCU, that could potentially lead into things in the future. One of which is Madripoor. Madripoor is this fictional place in the Marvel universe, right? But it was very significant in the X-Men universe. Why? Because this is one of the biggest places where Wolverine, Logan, used to hang out. So if you follow the comics, and again, I knew this a little bit, but of course I had to do my research later on to really understand it more. But it was very prominent location in the X-Men universe. So again, they're bringing this to the forefront first time. So I loved how they're doing that to kind of tease what could potentially be happening in the future, especially now that we know the X-Men will eventually show up. We just don't know when or how. Then we have Latvia, and we all know Doctor Doom himself, that's where he's from. We also know Fantastic Four is coming from Marvel and they are working on a movie and all that. So I like how this is teased now and is now an official part of the MCU. So really, really loved it. Those little teases there. Very curious to see what's going to happen now with the next 3 episodes as we are approaching the end of the series there. It's weird. It feels like it's going to end so soon. So hopefully it will conclude in a nice way that we don't feel like we're missing so much. So really good stuff. And again, as always, thoughts, comments, leave it in the comment section. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Lastly, in the reviews portion, we have the episode 4 of Invincible. Now, this is a series that I was lukewarm on, and I think it's just me, because I know there are a lot of people out there who are loving this series so far, and I'm coming into it never reading the comics. So the last episode, I did say that I was lukewarm, but I'm intrigued. I am intrigued to see how it's going to play out because every episode always had that major twist and reveal at the end that kind of like, smacked you out of left field and you're like, what the fuck just happened, right? This episode was a little bit more tame, and I felt like it was more focused on building characters, building more of the universe, and building on what is leading eventually to what the main plot line is. And it's centered mainly on Omni-Man. This dude is a killer. We don't know why, and we don't know what his motivations are. And his son is not aware of it, but yet he's training his son to be like him, to be this hero. His wife is starting to be suspicious, but now he's focusing on, improving on that relationship and kind of calm those doubts in her mind. Because the Hellboy character, I'm forgetting his name right now, Damien Darkblood, which I love this character, by the way, because I'm a huge fan of Hellboy, and he's investigating a lot of this stuff, and he knows it from the bottom of his heart that Omni-Man is responsible for those murders. They have a brief interaction in this episode where Omni-Man is basically telling him to back the fuck off or else you are going to suffer the same fate as, the Justice League group there. And Damien doesn't care. He's like, let's see you try, like prove me wrong that you're not it, right? Then you have the Global Defense Agency. They are monitoring Invincible and Omni-Man because they also are under the impression that it is Omni-Man who is suspicious, that he could be responsible. They had this ploy to try to get Omni-Man away from Earth so that they can investigate him more, because they have a crew launching to a trip to Mars. He refuses to go and Invincible goes instead. So Omni-Man uses this chance to take his wife on a vacation to kind of, calm her suspicions and all that stuff like that. But then we see like, there's still something off about him, that he needs the backing of his family to prove something or what have you. So really, really interesting. I'm so curious as to what game he's trying to play here, because this dude, there is just something off, right? But prior to Invincible going to Mars, he's finally dating good old Amanda there. Is it Amanda? I'm forgetting the love interest's name here. Let me look that up real quick because I have to make sure I know what I'm talking about. But it is voiced by Zazie Beetz. Zazie Beetz, who I think is really doing a great job as a voice actress in this series. I think she's doing really phenomenal as being a voice actress here, because I did have my reservations about the voice acting in this series. And the main reason is because, and I mentioned it in my last episode, it's Amber. Sorry, Amber. Um, it felt like they were just reading the script and not really acting. I felt like they were just running their lines, and then on to the next thing, right? But I think she's doing a pretty good job at this. And Steven Yeun is, in this episode, I felt like he did a better job with his voice acting in this episode. But Invincible, he makes it to Mars. There's, obviously people who, aliens who live in Mars, because one of the members of the Justice League group there was from Mars. The crew gets captured by them. Invincible saves them, but one of them got cloned by this creature. So the one who's returning to Earth is not the real crew member. So now it's introducing this other part of the story that could play out in this series. But another interesting thing is that we do get to see a little bit more of the motivation of the robot character, which is, I'm trying to remember the motivation here, or the name. But anyway, the robot secretly gets the blood of Rex, who is part of the new team that he's building. And we see that he's doing this because in episode 3, the clones that escaped prison, one of them survived while the other one dies. Now it looks like he's building a facility where he could clone more people. And he already built stuff up, and he's already in the process of doing it. And during the whole time, the robot is monitoring him. He's the one that let them free. So he's working with them, whether they know it or not. And it looks like this blood that was taken from Rex might play a part in this whole thing, right? And then we get to see that apparently there is his body, right? That could be his real body, the robot's body. So he could be ploying to build a clone or build something out of this. So I thought this was kind of interesting. It was a little murky for me, but it is really interesting how there's so many of these subplots happening. But to my disappointment, and I know, who knows, he may come back, but it looks like the Cecil over there, head of the global agency, because they feel like Damien is interfering a bit too much with their investigation and what they're trying to do. They were always at odds with him. They finally exorcise him. They capture him and they exorcise him. So now he is back in hell, so to speak. But not before Damien leaves a little something in the home of Omni-Man and family there. His little notebook was seen as one of the last things in the episode, so that could play heavily as to maybe it's a part of Damien that he can still monitor the family there. So overall, really interesting episode. Like I said, a little bit more grounded. Didn't have that huge punch like in the last 15 minutes of the episode that, kind of made you feel like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on here? I felt like this was definitely more easier to watch and not so all over the place, but it's giving you a little bit more about what the overarching potential plot and storyline is here. And I kind of like that little break because I think it made me appreciate the series even more so. So I was already intrigued, but now I'm even more intrigued to see what's going to be moving forward in this series. So, like I said, I know there are a lot more people out there who feel more strongly about this series since day one than I did, but it's growing on me. But my fear is, again, because it's a Kirkman production, just like The Walking Dead, I felt the same thing about The Walking Dead in the beginning, and then it just kept dragging and dragging and dragging, and I'm always, in there because I just want to see where it goes. I just want to see where it goes, and then I just got too tired of it. I don't want it to be like that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But so far, so good. And, the animation itself is, pretty well done too. So again, let me know what you think about this episode and what you think of the series as a whole so far. I'm curious to see how you guys are taking to it. And especially for you guys who have read the comic books, how are you taking to things so far? So that's about it, guys. That's the episode for today. Let's take one more look here at good old Volcano. Still spewing strong there. Like I said, up until this thing dies down, I will be monitoring things along with you guys. So I hope you appreciate it and have fun with that. But that's the episode. That's the show. I am me. You are you. And always make sure you are the best you that you can be. So with that being said, let's hit the music. Guys, thank you again so much for joining me and watching the podcast here in the show and for supporting the channel as always. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, support the channel. Let's get this channel and community up to 500 subscriptions. I will see you guys in the next one. And until then, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, be kind to one another. And I'll see all of you guys next time. Peace.